What is up, everybody? Welcome to Cryptographics. I'm very excited for today's stream. I have my good friend. He's an author. He's a businessman. He's a coach. He is such an intelligent human being, such a kind human being. And I am very excited to be speaking with you, Scott, today. Thank you so much for coming on with me, brother.
Oh, man, I love it. And it's great seeing you. And we've had some dialogue back and forth, and it's just awesome that we get to do it. We get to do this. So
exactly. We get to do it in public. We get to share the conversation. We get to,
yeah,
give people hopefully maybe a lot of stuff to chew on today. Because
yeah,
we're going to go deep. We're going to go pretty deep here.
Yeah.
Which is going to be awesome. So let's talk about who you are for a second and your story. I don't even want to go and start describing everything that, you've gone through and all of everything that you've learned. So why don't we start with kind of who you are, and we can kind of go into your story and how you transitioned, because there's obviously the two major points in your life that in most recent years, as far as the last maybe a couple decades, I believe it would have been, the two major shifts that happened for you. Walk us through, kind of who you were, what happened, and then that moment where you shifted, and from there to where we are today.
Sure. Yeah. So I, didn't have the best childhood, and that kind of left some marks, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Of course.
And I started my own business when I was 19 as a carpentry contractor, and just loved it, but always had this, I don't know, kind of doing it for everybody else, trying to please everybody, all that. And it would take a lot away from me, personally, because I didn't have a whole lot of confidence. That was my confidence, was the work I could do.
Yep.
So in doing that for, a decade, I would build like retail stores, and I was building a couple, like a Victoria's Secret and a couple other stores. And I was on the road. So I was away from home. I had a 1-year-old son, and I was so just screwing up bad. Like I wasn't in a good place. Everybody's yelling at me because the jobs were behind, and it was just a nightmare. And I remember all I kept thinking was, you know what? I just want to go home, and I want to go to bed, and I want all this to go away. I just want it all to go away. Because I was terrified that they weren't going to pay me, that I was never going to get this work again. I worked really hard to get into the ecosystem to build those types of retail stores because they were really difficult to get in at the time. And so finally, I got sick, I got better. And like 3 or 4 months later, I contracted this autoimmune disease that left me 100% completely paralyzed. And no one knew what it was, didn't really have any idea. And, I was told in the beginning it was a very fast form of MS. And then I thought, nope, that can't be it, because I'm not going to live that way. I can't live that way. I had a friend of mine who had it, and I wasn't going to do that. And finally, was probably after about 2 weeks, was finally diagnosed. It probably wasn't that long, but finally diagnosed with this. It's a rare autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré. And now there are people now that are kind of getting it because of, vaccine and stuff like that. But for me, it was a full-fledged, I got the bonus, I guess. I got the full-fledged deal. And when I was laying in this bed, and the thing with this is your mind is 100%. You are all there. Scott's there. Scott's there, man. He's got the thoughts, he's got everything, but he has a body that will not move. There is no, it's a weakness to the point where it just will not move. And you're in pain. It hurts. And it's kind of like when your legs go to sleep, and I remember laying there and thinking, you know what? You asked for this. This is what you wanted. You said you wanted to just escape that because of all the problems. Well, you got what you wished for. So if you can do this, then you can make yourself better. So that started to become the kind of the mindset of I created this, so I can repair this, I can fix this, and I can even do better. I can even make I can even take it further, and I can become what I've always dreamed of becoming. The life that I always wanted to live, I could actually live that. So I looked at it as not that I was, this body that refused to move. I looked at it as this is just the reboot of the computer. So I'm just going to do my thing. I'm just going to lay here, and whatever out there needs to do its work, whether you call it universe or God or whatever, here I am, do what you need to do. But the result is that picture, and the picture that I would stare at every day was a picture of me standing on a mountain skiing in Utah. And I would visualize that moment every day. That's what I had to do. And
it's amazing.
So here I am, I made it through that. And, when I was always kind of a spiritual guy because my mom was spiritual and didn't believe in God necessarily, but universal force. And, I read all the books of Deepak Chopra, everybody. And then here I am laying in this bed and I'm thinking, well, that didn't work.
This isn't adding up.
I mean, this isn't, it's not adding up. So it was kind of interesting to see, the road. And I remember I was laying there one night. I woke up. It was probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And this voice, and it was a voice. And it said, what if everything out there isn't out there? What if everything that you are looking at is actually all just inside your mind, that you
Such
are
an amazing
creating
thought.
this reality? Yep, it was. And I heard it, and then I'm like, that's it. It's an illusion. What I'm looking at that I think is my eyes are looking at, maybe my eyes are just looking back into my mind, and I'm looking at, it's the Matrix, right? I'm just looking at this thing. And this is in, 2001. And so for the next, probably 15, 20 years, it's been trying to adapt that little idea into my life. And now that's what I teach people, is how to, first off, actually understand that if you believe or not, do you create your reality? And at what extent, if you do believe you do, to what extent do you think you do? Like, are you only controlling certain things? Or are you controlling all of it? Like, it's really fascinating to me to hear what people think, So as we know, the old habits are hard to extinguish. They live on. So after
deep inside the fishbowl.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about the fishbowl, right? So when I was I recovered and I was great and I was, working again, and old habits started to come in again. I started to feel the same way I felt before I was paralyzed. I started to get angrier. Everything just, I was not a happy dude. I just was not. I had every reason to be, though. I had everything. I had the cars, I had the boat, I had the beautiful house, I had the family, I had all of it. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And I just didn't even know if happiness was a thing anymore. You know what I mean? Because you just feel but I knew it's still a mindset. And went on vacation. My best friend and I, his whole family, we were all extremely close, and walking down the beach collapsed. he went into the water. We all went into the water. And it was him and his 7-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, and my 9-year-old son. And we all went in the water except my son. And we fought for our lives, and 3 of us made it out, and he didn't. And that was the crushing blow for me. That was the one where it was like, whoa, what is happening here? You know, and living through that, and the amount, you know, I dealt with survivor's guilt a lot with that one. That was really, really difficult. And that's the thing that really kind of pushed me to where I am today, to, you know, it's time to be great. And I literally sat on the beach and I promised him, listen, I'm going to be great. I'm going to live an inspiring life. And I'm going to take this information, and if I can help one person understand that maybe they contracted an illness because of their thought process or their habit, as we call it, then, and if I can help them get better, or, you know, take somebody that's in depression and help them, and even just by sharing the story and help motivate people, then I've done my job, right? That's what I would ask him. I've done my job, and that's what I need to do. So here, that's why I'm here. It's what I do, and it's why I get to live the life I do, because it, you know, life, you know, as you hear all the people say, Tony Robbins, it doesn't matter. They're all saying it. You know, life isn't happening to you. It is happening for you. I am the absolute proof that it is happening for you, and you are creating it. There is no question about it. You are the creator of your reality.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's kind of hard to fully wrap your head around the idea, if it's new to you, about, you know, illnesses and ailments, you know, being almost self-generated in a way. But I'll share a story as well, just because, you know, I've had an experience that I shared with you when we first spoke, and it was like, and it's about, I've always had eye issues, you know, and in the last 6 months or so, or 6 months, somewhere in there, between 3 and 6 months ago, my left eye started really bad, and it started getting deeply inflamed to the point where I'd wake up in the morning and it would just be a mess. Like it was gross. It was painful. And I went to the doctor, and they said they didn't know what was wrong with it. And no one knew what was going on. I went to the an optometrist, and he said, just hot compresses, do this. And I got these medications. And at the time, basically going deep into meditation already, and, you know, asking questions about myself and, you know, my past and things that I felt were kind of holding me back from fully, like, you know, experiencing life in general. And it was basically suppressing me, you know, and just not letting me fully be, you know, in a way. And so at this point, it was painful. It was not fun. And I went into a meditation, and I actually, in this meditation, I had an emotional, like, release, I'll call it, where when I was about 3, 4, 5, I don't even know how old I would have been, honestly, but it was very, very young. And I just remembered this morning where, and it's funny because I don't actually have any memory of this gentleman or my cousin, but my cousin Shannon. And apparently we had a great relationship when I was younger. And I just remember there was a morning where my mom came to me, and she just said, Shannon's gone. And I knew that he had passed because of a brain tumor, you know. Wow. And so I just remember that moment. I can't remember anything else, but I remember that moment. And in that meditation, I tracked all the way down to that. And I held so much grief, you know, from that moment. And it felt like an hour, but it was a long release of deep, like, grieving. And I woke up the next day, and my eye was better. My eye was legitimately gone. There was as if nothing. And you can actually go on this channel, and you could look at my videos from early April. If you look at my one eye, one eye has an issue. You can look at all my streams, all my videos, and then you can look at there's a shift, and boom, the next video, my eye is legitimately, like, clear again. And so this stuff is real. Like it's as real as the skin on your body, like everything, you know, it is no joke.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, that is such a perfect example of understanding that when I laid there and that voice came to me, I thought, and was, sitting in this, it really was a prison, you know what I mean? It was really a prison. And just having this thought of, you did this. This is your fault. This is your fault. But if this is your fault, then you get to change it. It's not up to what somebody else says. It's not up to your diagnosis. It's not up to any of that. It's up to you because you put yourself here. You put yourself here. So understanding that, like exactly what you just explained, is kind of what I do, is help people understand that we all have trauma in our life. Now, your trauma could be, you got ran over by a tractor and your leg got cut off, or someone died, a grandparent. And even in that, we kind of, we minimize our traumas because trauma is a big word. You know what I mean? Somebody's in trauma, then there's a trauma unit that, they're bleeding, they're going to die. Well, there's other traumas that are very, very small. We think they are, but they leave a mark, and that mark they leave in our bodies. So how the mind and body works, it's great to get your mind straight. Everybody, I need to get my mindset straight. That's awesome. That's so good. You do that with meditation. But there's another part of that, and that's the body. The body stores the trauma that we have felt throughout our lives. Most importantly, the first 7 years of our lives, they're the traumas that we fill our cup with. So what happens with that trauma is a chemical is released in the body that makes you feel whatever you feel with that trauma. It could make you feel guilt because your friend passed away, or you could feel inadequate, unseen, all the things, right? Well, that feeling is actually a chemical release in your body. So even though when we get this straight, later in our years, we still have the chemical factories in our bodies. So what we need to do, and people will turn to cannabis, and that's fantastic. They'll turn to ayahuasca. They'll turn to 5-MeO. They'll turn to a lot of different ways to release this trauma. But I like to use, and my wife and I, my wife's a certified Soma breath coach, and what she does is she helps use your breath. So you own your breath. And through using breath work and meditation and music, between the three, you can start to release some of this trauma that is in your body. It actually starts to come out. So what I like to refer it to as, you have a 4-inch PVC pipe that goes from the top of your head down to your feet. And
love this analogy.
For the last 20 years, you have been packing that pipe full of all the shit that you don't want, all the trauma, all the things. You have just packed it in there, and it's like dirt now. So you're trying to get energy moving through your body, and we'll talk a little bit about energy. But in order to get this energy to move through your body, you need to remove the shit that's in your pipe. So this trauma that you experienced with your cousin, right? That left a lot of shit in that pipe. And you just packed it down. That's what we do, especially as guys, we pack it down and we say, well, I'm not a man if I cry. You don't just walk around talking about this stuff, right?
It's weak.
And it's weak. It's weakness.
Yeah, it's weakness. Yeah.
You can't show, we're hunters. We go out there and we hunt, we gather. That's what we do. But we're moving into a time of where you start seeing a lot more of these conversations coming out. And as one that's had to go through it, there is no greater strength than sitting in a room for hours and just being a mess. There is no greater strength in sitting in those tears, that release, as somebody who's done it, as somebody who's watched and helped other people through that, to let that emotion, to let that shit that is in that pipe go. And when it goes, it usually gets here and we'll stuff it back down because we don't want the full expression of, letting go of the emotion.
Yep.
But once it comes up and it's out and the tears come, whatever, then that is getting it out. And now you can start to move energy through your body. Now, why is energy important? Your body's energy. You have billions and trillions and gazillions of cells in your body that are all talking to each other. They're all working together. And they need to have electricity run through your body. Well, when we're very dense, we call 3D. When we're very tight, when we're very, through stress, lower dimensional frequency energy, we that's usually where sickness lives. It lives in that lower vibration, that lower density. As we start to breathe using our own breath, and through meditation, all that, it really starts to break up that trauma, but it needs to come out. So people say to me, listen, I thought this was going to feel good. This feels horrible. And I said, no, you got to go with it. You got to go with it. This is all stuff that has been sitting in you for the last 20, 30, 40 years. You got to let it go. You got to let it out, because when you let it out, now you're going to be able to move energy. And that is when you're going to move energy through your body to where the point that illness, that sickness, that condition cannot live in that higher energy state. So that is really what healing is moving frequency, just like tuning into a radio station. And the more you tune into that radio station, in the beginning, it's always a little fuzzy. You'll get it,
yeah. You have no idea what you're doing. Yeah.
Yep. And then, but the more you tune into it, the more it gets stronger and stronger. And then pretty soon it's just a push button and you can hit it and you can get there right away. And you hear people of, going out of body or having mystical experience. All that is the energy that you are. You're not this person. You're not, I'm not Scott. You're not Steve. We're just playing a character, Jim Carrey. You're just playing this character. So if we're playing this character, who are we really then? Well, we're God. You are God having a human experience, because you can do this. I don't know how I can do that, but I can do that. I couldn't. And I would lay in that bed and I would watch people come in and out of my room. And I would think, how the hell can they do that? I could, but now I can't anymore. So what am I now separate from that I was not? And that's when I got the message. Okay, I get it. I am the universe, just like we all are. So I can create anything I want. I really can create anything I want. And that's really where the story starts. And it's the hallway of 1,000 doors. You just keep opening doors, right? And because it's a journey, man, it's really finding out. But what you find out is like, oh, this is the real deal. When that energy comes up through you in the form of a meditation, or even, like it's very similar to an ayahuasca experience or a bufo experience, where suddenly it's not you anymore. You just kind of move to the side and this energy comes through you. And it's like, it's life force energy. It's God energy. And once that happens, it's over for you. It's like, oh man,
you can't go back.
There's no going back. And now it's the chase. It's the chase of that, So
absolutely it is. And I want to ask you this question before I do here. This is a great question. For everyone watching right now, if you stick around to the end, I didn't put this on any thumbnail. I kind of mentioned this on Twitter. I'm going to be announcing probably the biggest thing I've ever done as far as a giveaway at the end of the stream. So if you're wanting to find out what it is, stick around. You definitely want to stick around. So anyways, though, Taya, thanks so much for the question. Fascinating story. Do you believe we create 100% of our reality, or is it co-creation with Source Universe to some degree?
Well, I guess the question is really to yourself, but for me, because that's who ultimately matters, right? Is your belief in it. Yeah, I believe it's all illusion, whether it's a visual illusion, whether it's hearing, any sense, right? Feeling, because we're really good at it. And I do believe that whether we are source or whether we are God, universe, whatever, right? Because we have kind of been taught that we can work alongside it, but we're less than it, and it is not us. It can be in us. We can pray to it, we can talk to it, but it's not who we are. I believe that it is who you are, and you're not this person having a universal experience. You are the universe having a human experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Because
Absolutely
and
does.
we just forgot who we are. You know, we just forgot who we are and the power that we are. So yeah, that is my belief. And I have a, I mean, if you want to play a little game, I do a little exercise where I help people understand this is how you basically create your reality. And if you want to do it, we can do it.
Let's do it. Okay, yeah. And anyone who's watching, I don't care if you're in the mall right now, sitting on a bench next to someone, you're going to join in with us. Let's all do it together here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if you're driving, you can do it. Just don't close your eyes. But what I'll do is okay. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you guys to close your eyes. And again, if you're driving, don't close your eyes, but hold one of your hands out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place an object in your hand. Now, obviously, I'm not with you, so it will not be a physical object. It's just going to be a thought of an object. And when I do that, I want you to have an experience with the object. Okay? It's a really simple little exercise. So eyes closed, hands out. The object that I'm going to place in your hand is a golf ball. It's a golf ball. So just think about the golf ball in your hand. Does it have a color? What's the texture? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it solid? Is it liquid? Is it hot? Is it cold? And you can open your eyes. So the experience of that is, and you can tell me your experience of it. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, I'm going through, especially when you said golf ball, it was just like I could see the spot on my hand that it was. I could feel that texture. Specifically, if you're golfer at all, the Titleist Pro V1, that was the first thing that came up. Saw Titleist on it, saw little number 1. You felt like that nice that texture of it. You felt all the little dimples on it, and yeah, just the sensation of it. I didn't get as far as to smell it, but like the sensations of what it feels like, the size of it, how it fit on my hand,
what color
everything
was it?
about it. It was white.
White. So mine's yellow. Nice. And the trick to that is I did not put anything in your hand at all, except just a thought. And you took that thought, and generally what we do is we go back to a memory of having a golf ball in our hand, and it's a white one, and it says Titleist on it, right? And that memory of maybe playing with your buddies or your dad or whatever. And yet again, all I did was put a thought into your hand. That's it. And you created a whole reality around that golf ball, a whole reality around it. So the thing that how the mind works is it takes billions of bits of information per second into our mind. Okay. The eyes look out, they're pulling information everywhere, all things possible. But the only things that show up for us are the things that we have a relationship to. So guilt, if you have had guilt in your life, then in your frame of reference, you're going to look for guilt because it's what your mind does. Why? Because it knows if I can get him to feel guilt, then the chemical factories in his body will give him the feeling of guilt. And now he's had the experience. The mind doesn't care if you have what you want or what you don't want. It just wants to get your body to feel. That's the mind and body connection. So the mind's job is kind of like the CEO of a company, and it sits at the head of the boardroom table. and it has its little project managers, guilt, anger, unworthiness, you list them, and it uses those as filters to say, this is what Scott wants. Because every time we throw guilt at him, he thinks about it and he has experiences around it. So it starts to, when we start to understand how our mind works, then the question becomes, okay, are these events in my life creating the guilt or this displeasure in my life, these feelings that I feel on a day-to-day basis, or is it the opposite? Is it the feelings that I am addicted to that constantly create the events in my life to then allow me to feel that way?
Right.
And that, when you really start to take that in, it's the biggest question. Because when you start to understand how the mind and body work, you start to realize it is the latter. It is the events are being created for you, and who's creating the events? You are, because you're paying attention to them. It's just like the golf ball. You are constantly thinking about this golf ball, or what this person did to me. And I will never be happy because they're not doing what I want them to do. And then we fall into the victim mode. When we understand that nobody is in charge of how you feel, you are in charge of how you feel. And you can move into the direction of, listen, you know what? If I can fill my cup first and I can make myself happy, even, feel a purpose, a joy in life, and I go and do the things that make me feel joyful, well, then I would be joyful, right? But what do? We concentrate on the things that make us miserable. You know what I mean? Even you don't have to go far. You go on Twitter and even,
oh yeah,
even with the hack community and everything else, crypto community itself. It's just, you will find what you're looking for. We think it's an algorithm that is Twitter's algorithm. It's your algorithm. It's yours. It's what you're putting your attention on. That is what's going to come and show up. And we try to say, well, wait, I'm going to stop doing that, Scott. I'm not going to think that way anymore. You have a body that is producing these chemicals. You can't override that. So it needs to work both ways. It's mindset and it's your body set. It's releasing this trauma that allows you to reprogram your body. Because listen, your body is changing every second constantly, because you have cells that are dying and you have new cells that are taking over the spot of the cell that's dying. But what happens is what's called cellular memory. The cell that is dying is taking all its information, and it gives the cell that is taking its place its information so it can be the new guard on the block. But when we decide we don't want to do this anymore, we don't want to have these thoughts anymore, less and less information gets transferred down into the new cells. So it's, a 10-cell generational 10-cell shift that you can actually become what you've always wanted. And then they'll tell me, it's like all of a sudden I realize I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh my God, I got everything I've ever wanted. And it just happens so gradually, which is what we want. Quick doesn't work. It has to be gradual. That'll stick. That'll stay. So it is about the opening and diving in, so to speak. So
can I ask real quick too? Because in your book, in Finding Ugly, which you've written a ton about in this book, and in detail with lots of analogies about how to do this all. And specifically, you talked about the conscious versus the unconscious mind, or even like the sub mind.
Yep.
And can you talk about, how someone can understand the two of those and how you can work with the subconscious mind in order to, start creating and basically start cleaning out your fishbowl, or the stuff that has been in the pipeline, that you want to clean out, so that way the sub mind can then do what we're talking about now, which is creating your own reality.
Well, the thing is, you have to realize, so the guide of this is first 7 years. If you, as a general term, the first 7 years is when you fill your pipe, you fill your cup, because you're learning from your teachers, you're learning from your parents, your grandparents, you're learning from your culture, you're taking in all this stuff. And they did too. Your parents did the same thing. They took information from their parents. Their parents took information from their parents. It's cultural until it finally gets so uncomfortable to then it's our decision to say, wait a minute, I got to look at this because this doesn't feel good. I don't like this, right? That's generally how it works. But the first 7 years, we kind of fill that pipe with all of the information that they gave to us. So suddenly you are your dad. Suddenly you are your dad. And that becomes our habit. That becomes the dictator to our lives because these are our experiences. So much like the golf ball, that little exercise, that little practice, think about that as being your first 7 years. That's what you did. You took information, you took it in, you had this experience with a golf ball. Now, for the rest of your life, you live off of that memory. So if in the book, I say, I give an example of a woman, a little girl at her birthday party, and her uncle comes in and says, hey, you've gotten really fat. Now, as a 6-year-old girl, hearing that, she's like, oh my God, I'm fat. So now, as she sees herself, how's she going to see herself? Because she's constantly thinking, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be fat. So what is she going to see in the mirror? She's going to see fat. And it's going to start to grow more and more and more. And that is going to be the dictator of her life. So that is the subconscious mind. That's what it does. We plant this information, it gets planted, and then we feed off of it for the rest of our lives. So I love to call it the habit because it is a habit and it's a hard habit to break. So you have to do. So when people say, okay, so what do I do to stop this? I'm going to say 90% of it is awareness. When you can kind of be the observer of your mind and the observer of your body, how you think, what shows up, the thoughts that show up, and how you feel, and you just don't run on autopilot. When you get in the seat and you start driving and you start seeing what your mind is doing as kind of like an observer, then you become aware immediately when the mind goes down the habitual road, when it starts to think, oh, see, here she goes again. She's going to have this conversation. I don't want to have this conversation. This is going to lead to an argument. We are so on autopilot. But then if we stop and we think, wait a minute, why did I have that thought? Why am I having this preconceived idea that we're going to go down this road that we always go down? Because I usually follow it and I feel like shit after. I always get in an argument, and now I'm looking for more arguments to have with people. But why am I having this feeling? The awareness is key because it starts to put the brakes on a little bit. It's still going to happen. It's a freight train coming through your living room. You're not going to stop the freight train coming through your living room. Don't try. Just move out of the way. You can pick it up after and try to understand when you go down that road. Because when you get into a depressed state, that is chemical in your body. You created that chemical in your body. You created the factories that created the chemical. So the object is not to feel it. The object is to starve the factories so they produce less. But you got to give something else. You need to have another feeling override that depressive feeling. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. You got to replace it. You got to. The body's going to need to. It's going to want to do something, but you got to change what the body's going to go to.
The mind needs a project manager to filter information in, right? So, if you want to remove the anger, then you got to bring somebody else in and something that you're going to pay attention to. So, if I want happiness, I want energy. I just want to feel alive. I just want to feel motivated. Then what I say, easy one. Playlist of 5 songs that will elevate you. And my trick would be to do something that is one of your most favorite things in the world to do. So for me, and I know for you too, skiing was huge for me. Absolutely huge for me. I love to ski. I feel it's the closest thing to flying. without leaving the ground, right?
It's so fun. Yeah.
So much. And just being in the environment, being in the forest and, seeing the snow and just the beauty of it all. That to me is the most light, the most expressive I can be. So what I would do is, I generally ski maybe 30 days a season, 20 to 30 days a season. And I will play the same 5 songs throughout that whole entire season. I will not change them. And what that does is when I get in a depressed state or an angered state, I mean, I have to want to do this. And at first you may not want to, because again, that feeling that you're addicted to, your habit, it feels good.
Oh yeah.
The
Super
action
addicting.
doesn't, right? But it's a high. It's a drug. It's taking the needle, right? So if I can, once I get to the point where like, nope, I got to stop this. I got to do something different. And I put on those 5 songs, then where am I? I'm not in the anger anymore. I'm skiing on a mountain because it's taking me back to the feeling, because I have a memory of the feeling of skiing in Colorado, in Breckenridge or Telluride or wherever, right? And that is such an easy way to get you out of the state. But the first thing you need to know is have the awareness of how the habit works and how it affects your body, how it lives in your body, how to start to remove that habit from your body. Takes a year. That's what I always tell everybody. It's a year practice. You'll start creating stuff. Events may show up for you that you've always wanted that couldn't happen before because of the habit. And, they'll be the reminder to you that, wow, this felt really good when this happened and something was different. I was different. So, but it usually takes about a year to actually get it to the point where now I know, now I'm on guard. And listen, man, if you come through the door, you better be ready because I'm on to you now. And whether it's depression, whether it's anger, whatever that low vibe frequency is, you become super tuned into knowing, and then you start to understand, why have these things come to me? Why do I attract, women say this all the time, why do I attract these guys to me? Well, they're just a repeat of your father. When your dad was angry at you, he said this to you, might have said twice in your lifetime, could have been the greatest father of all time. But you being scared in that moment, when your father's gone, you have to repeat that process because that feeds the habit. So you need to have somebody step in, whether it's a boss or a new boyfriend or a husband, where they say, well, you know what? He's just like my father. Well, of course he is, because you build him that way. You are the builder of your life, and you are the builder of the people in your life because you have trained yourself to see that in them. And we do that through our filter. We see the things that we don't want, but we really do want because it feeds the habit. And I hope that makes sense. So
it absolutely does. How does someone then take, like, because really what you're saying is you need to become like the observer, but also train your body at the same time. So you're programming yourself to be able to be the observer. So how does someone start on their journey? Like if they want to do today, what's the most simple thing they can do to become the observer, as well as like, how do they know if they're making progress? What's that moment that they can look for as a cue where like, okay, this is actually starting to work for me?
Great question. So the first part of that is how do they know that they're making progress? And that's when you see it happening. You actually, just like I was talking about, you're the observer of your mind. You see yourself going down this road of blaming. Let's just say it's blaming somebody for something. You're making me feel this way. They cannot make you feel anyway. You are doing the feeling. You are not a victim.
100%.
Don't go into victim mentality, because if they control the strings, you're just a puppet. You are not a puppet. Absolutely are not a puppet. So if you can get to the place that you can see that and say, God, here I go again. Every time this person, oh man, she can push a button. He could push a button. My boss can push a button. What is the button? What is the button that he's pushing? Because That's the problem. That's the habit. And chances are that button that they're pushing didn't happen with him, didn't happen with your boss. It happened way back. And it could be seriously like a 30-second dialogue that you had such a hit in your body that the mind said, oh, wait, there it is. Hey, my job is to get this thing to feel. He just felt on that one. So really all I need to do is keep bringing this subject up and he'll feel that anger. So we become the habit, and we become it so much that we don't even know where the habit starts and stops. We are just it. So if you can be the observer, that's huge. That's really huge. So the other part of that is what can we do to start to move on the journey of becoming the universe, right? Is to, with the body, it's breath work and meditation. That's so big, because meditation is a chance for the mind to reset. If meditation doesn't work, sleep works. Sleep works. Just going into a sleep mode. So breath work, though, energizes your body. And when people usually start doing, a breath work routine, then, taking deep breaths in and then deep breaths out and holding your exhale, all different types. But when you start doing that with the meditation and music, you can usually get into an emotional state, which is fantastic, because again, that helps unclog the pipe, and that'll energize your system. And it just becomes a practice of doing it more and more and moving it up through your body to the point where when that tube is clear, the better and better you get at it, then that is when you start to actually feel like an out-of-body experience. And we think it's like an out-of-body experience. It really isn't. It's really who you are. We have just packed our pipe full of shit that you can't feel that anymore. You become low density. So as we breathe, our frequency rises. As our frequency rises, the higher energy feelings, that's when they show up. That's the happiness. That's just feeling alive. The energy, just feeling, man, I feel so energetic. And that has a lot to do with that. So,
100%. It does. And I mean, you can feel that when you become the observer for a second. I actually had this, recently in my life, very recently actually, where, you basically look at yourself as the person who is creating this situation. Even if it feels like you're not, when it feels like it's happening to you. And when you take that accountability and you own it and you look at it and you basically embody that you're the one causing this whole issue, there's this lightness that comes afterwards. There's this freedom that like you feel lighter. Like I felt lighter when this happened to me. I felt different, and each time you go deeper with that I felt, because this has been a big part of my journey of the last 3 years, is I've really learned how to go deep. And every time, exactly as you said, and you get lighter, you feel yourself raise up a little bit. It's a legitimate feeling. And the only way you can describe it is exactly as you said. It feels like your frequency, your energy has risen in vibration, and you are at a different state of being in that time. And it's phenomenal. It's real.
Yeah. Oh, 100% real. And where this comes into creating what you want, and listen, just so everybody knows, I'm a hex maxi, right? And I sacrificed. I'm in the game, and I love, I love the community. I love watching it, but that came to me because I was in the vibration of it. And, I had, crypto just kept coming up for me. It just kept showing up everywhere. And obviously, listen, I knew what Bitcoin was. I knew what Ethereum was never, into it, never really needed to do anything with it until, I started to learn. I'm like, this thing just keeps showing up, man. And you know what? I've learned the most important thing. I've learned to listen. When something keeps getting thrown in front of my face, it's like, all right, Scott, You got to learn this.
Yep.
So I did the dive, the 4-month dive, and not 100 hours. I did 1,000 hours. I am going to study. I am going to find out what blockchain is all about. I'm going to try to wrap my head around this the best way I can. That's why we had some one-on-ones, right? To help me with that journey. And because when someone tells me that something, when I heard for Hex, for example, when I heard 10,000x, I'm like, all right, hold on a minute. Let me get my calculator. And I started doing the gazintas, right? And I'm like, holy shit, is that possible? Did that really happen? And I see the chart and I say, holy shit, that really happened. Okay. So this is crypto. All right. I know what Bitcoin did. I watched it from the very beginning, and I know what it did, and I could have been a part of that, but it wasn't my time then. But now it makes sense to me, because now I understand blockchain. Now I understand, contracts. I understand how we are in a time where, everything has changed in technology, and the one thing that really hasn't is money. It's fun, right? So that's how I kind of got into that. And then, of course, Hex, the community and all of that, I started to watch you. I started to watch RG3. I would listen to Rack and Rochelle. I would listen to these guys that, that knew this stuff, and I want to know. And the more I knew, the more excited I got. But it was because I listened. It's because I listened. So what I mean by that is, when something gets put in front of you over and over again, somebody's trying to tell you something. And it depends in the state that you're in. So at that time, I was in a very, very high, very elevated state in this time frame when crypto kept coming up. And I knew it wasn't my habit, because I was elevated. I was in a higher frequency. Okay. So that's when I know, all right, it's time to listen. The other thing I know too is, and I love this, is when, the two big questions are, all right, so when's Pulse Chain going to launch? And what's the all-time high of the next bull run of Hex, right?
The two big ones. Those are the two big ones.
And so when people would, when I would ask myself that, and I would say, Scott, why are you going out there trying to find the answer? You know the fucking answer. You know what this answer is. The answer is whatever you see it. If you see it, it's $10. Then you just need to see it as $10. You just need to feel what it feels like when somebody says, yeah, I wish I would have got into Hex when I heard it went down to like 3 cents back in 2022. Oh my God, I wish I would have got into that. Well, yeah, I did. You're kidding me. Tell me, what was it like? Yeah, we were scared shitless. We thought we lost all our money, right? When you can tell that story of a year from now, and you can believe that story has to come. So the number one tool that I use, and I have used pretty much most of my life, is I talk to myself. I talk to myself. And it used to probably look like it was a mental patient before cell phones. And yes, I'm an older dude. So when I was driving around before cell phones, I'm sure people looked at me and thought, who is that guy talking to? But I would have very livid conversations, very real conversations. And I promise you, I'm not psychotic. Very real conversations of what my life was a year from that day. So I was a contractor, and I was doing very small jobs on people's houses. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to build buildings. I wanted to build, 5, 10 story buildings. And I would have conversations of me building that building to somebody. And a couple of years later, there I am building a 5-story building. And I'm like, oh my God, I had this conversation, so it sounds kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. We've gotten a little crazy here, but I'm telling you, it works. Because when I started understanding crypto, and people start, especially in the Hex community, when they started to talk about future self and all that. Now, listen, you are talking my language when you're talking future self. That's who I was talking to. So in the passenger seat, I'm having a conversation, and I'm having the conversation of, yeah, well, I mean, I got these freaking stakes coming out, and now I don't have it just on one chain. I got it on this chain, and I got it on this chain too. I mean, And they all just happen, these airdrops. And it's like, so I start having this conversation of not where the hex price is now, of where it is a year from now, 2 years from now, pick a time, pick a day, and see that price and put it in your phone as a screensaver. I mean, I do that all the time. Your bank account, put it on as a screensaver, because your mind, it's called the reticular activating system, will create those
the
things.
RAS, right?
Yep, the
Yeah,
RAS.
right. Yeah,
The
RAS.
RAS.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And
yeah.
And it's just a simple trick. And so if you want to know what the hex price is, go see what your notes say. If you wanted $1 a year from now, then okay, put it at $1 and just then say, okay, so now this is my life. I have this amount of money, whatever coming. Then what's my life going to be like? If you are depending on a Lambo to driving that Lambo is going to make my life, it's not. It's just not. It's not going to work. You got to get your head straight. It's not going to be a car. It's not going to be a boat. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I've had all of it. It is not that. It's what's in here. It is really being good with yourself. It's being solid with yourself. It's knowing that you are creating the reality that you want to live. And that's when the partner comes. That's when the money comes. That's when all of the things start lining up, and they just come out of nowhere because now you are viewing those things instead of all the habitual things that you've been eyeing your whole life. You're now looking for the other things. So
can you talk for a sec about, how that happened with you? Like, where you were headed, how you were creating, and when that first, I mean, you said with the buildings and with the construction, is there another one that happened where it was so monumental, like it came out of nowhere and then things came in droves for you where it kind of shocked you?
Endless.
I'd love to hear that.
Oh, it was endless. Jesus. So with my wife now, I was in a very long relationship, almost 30 years, and had everything. I mean, if you would have seen my life, this dude's obviously happy. And it was the Robin Williams effect. Robin Williams, he wanted to be a great comedian. He wanted to have the #1 show. He did. He wanted then to be a serious actor because that's going to make him happy. He was phenomenal at it. And he killed himself because you can stack all the stats. You can stack them all up. And then when you look at them and you think, I thought every single one of those things would make me whole and happy, and they haven't. That is the greatest failure you will ever have in your entire life. And it will kill you. So here I am. I have all these things. I have it. And I wasn't happy. I was just numb. I was numb. I was numb from the survivor's guilt. I was constantly looking for someone to forgive me because I felt that it was my fault. If it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have drowned. Why was it him and not me? Maybe I should have gotten to go. And it was to the point where I would literally go out on my boat and I would say, okay, which side do you want to go? Do you want to go back in through the inlet and go home? Or do you want to just point to the east and just let the fuel run out? Here's your chance, dude. Like you have to make a decision here. You can't just keep going like this. So during this time, I would watch this. I would look at this boat forum. It was called The Whole Truth. And there was a forum in it that had guys on their boats with their wives and girlfriends. And I would just look at those guys and I would say, how lucky are they that they have a partner that would want to do that? Because that's where I love to be. I just wanted to be on the ocean. I wanted to be on the water so bad. I just loved the whole deal of it. And of course, I had no expectation of it. I'm in a marriage, I'm the whole deal, right? And then suddenly all these things started to show up. And now that person is in my life. And we were yesterday out Fort Myers Beach, seeing everything that happened there with my person on the boat. And it's because I had such an emotional attachment to seeing that and saying, God, I want that. but no expectation of it coming, because this is the person that I'm married to right now. It wants nothing to do with that at all, which is hard because it's who I am, you know? So that person showed up, and that's been absolutely magical. It's happened with money. I mean, oh God, where things would be so desperate, and then I would just let go of, because I owned a company, and I recently sold it. 37 years of being a contractor, and it was always about not having enough money for payroll, and it was the worst. It was a prison, because if I can't pay this, the shame.
Oh
If
man.
I have to go to my guys and say, listen, guys, I can't pay you this week, the shame of it. And I'll be put out of business because I was a union contractor. So all of that. And then how money would just show up. I mean, PPP started, and I didn't know anything when COVID went down. And my accountant calls me up and he goes, your lucky day, dude. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, what was your payroll for the last 2.5 months? And I told him. He goes, well, this is how much you're going to get. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. And he says, yeah, they're giving it to you. He says, all you need to do is you just got to pay your guys. I said, oh, I just want to stay in business. And I literally did. The money just showed up in my account, and and I'm a lot of money. And that money went right to pay my guys. I kept my guys employed the whole entire time. I had them work at houses, their own houses. I paid them. I was the unemployment office for them, which to me was huge for me, because I always wanted to take care of my guys, But walking out of that hospital, that was a result of that. Being in the hospital was a result of that.
Right. Yeah. The inverse.
Right? So it's really been my whole entire life. And, with the tragedy, that was the one where I said, I got to get help. I got to get this figured out, because I can't live like this. I can't live with this guilt on me. I can't. And that's the one where, I just reached out, and I started going to meditation workshops, and my life literally flipped upside down in the best possible way. Everything worked out. Anything I needed would just show up like that. And it would be a joke. It would be, we would laugh about it. And why it would happen is because the frequency gets so fast and elevates so fast. And man, I could tell you stories about, we talk about downloads, getting information. Oh my God, it would be nonstop. Because when your frequency is up there, that's when the information can come in. And it's information from worlds, and it is kind of like channeling in a way, but you've experienced it, because what you just said, going into the meditations and feeling that elevated, you start to have information come into you. And that's why I say that information that is coming to you is your information. The thing, being, person, whatever is talking to you is who you really are. You just forgot, and you're playing the character of who you think you are.
You're stuck in the matrix.
It is. It's 100% the matrix. But here's the thing. Where we come from, you can't feel light and dark. There is no dark. And the darkness is what makes the light so good. It makes the color so wonderful. So when you're in that depressive state, like with me, in both instances, laying in bed and having people come and pitying me or whatever, and I'm thinking, listen, man, I'm Seabiscuit, I'm going to run the race again, bro. Don't worry about me. I'm coming. You know what I mean? It was like, this is the greatest underdog story of all time. I'm going to learn to walk again. I'm going to learn to feed myself again. I'm going to learn to talk again. I'm going to learn to actually shit again. That'll be great. I'll learn to eat again. I'll learn to do all these things all over again. And that's going to be an inspiring story. So if I can do that, then clearly you can do this. And that's again, that's why I do what I do, is to help people understand that you are it. You pray to God, you are God. You speak to the universe, you feel the universe because you are the universe. You're all of it. You're just having a human experience. That's it. And maybe you die every single night. Every time you go to sleep, maybe you die every single night. Because I witnessed it. I witnessed death. It was not what I expected it would be. It was beautiful. I watched him. I watched him take his last breath, and I watched the whole thing, and it hit me in such a profound way to see that happen. I never looked at death ever again the same. It's just next game, you're player one. Next game, you go in a little further, you go in a little further, and you learn more. That's all it is, in my view. Anyway,
it's resonating. It's resonating a lot. And I think, I don't know, there's a comment, Black Pepper was just saying, so we had it downloaded in my sleep one night, woke up, started researching how to set up an ETH wallet. And, I think there's people like, you can get them in dreams. You can get, I know I've had many things of just like through meditation or just through in states of, after I've built myself up in a way, just my state of being, I'll call it, I've had things hit me. It's like, oh, it's like a ton of bricks. And what's interesting too, is that a lot of those moments have actually come by going through the barrier that you keep running into, those feelings that you bring up in your body, things that keep coming. And every single time, personally, on a personal note, that I've ran through those, I've admitted, okay, I am the problem here. I need to fix this within myself. You get to that place where you see it for what it is. You see it wholly for what it is. And next thing you know, boom, the epiphany comes. The realization of how you need to move forward comes. And it's a phenomenal, it's so consistent. It's so consistent. It almost seems like it's just, I don't even know how it almost seems systematic. You do this thing, you get to the certain state, boom, you get information. It's that straightforward and simple,
because the information is in you. That's the thing. The information is in you. And, when you understand, and again, this was this is, 20 years ago now when I heard that voice, and it's like, I would practice. Okay. So I'm looking out at the wall. Cause my room was pretty small, right? I had a window, I had an air conditioner, I had a TV, I had a picture collage of the person that I once was, that I vowed I would be again, and there was the clock on the wall. And I would just look at these things and I would think, okay, I can do this because I don't really go anywhere else. I'm pretty much in this room all the time. I go to a rehab room where they try to get me to move and do that stuff. But I can play here and pretend that this room is just inside my mind. And I am not looking out into a room. I'm actually looking into my mind. My eyes don't look out. They're actually looking in. They're actually looking at a screen that is me. So the wall is me. It's inside me. The TV, it is me. It's inside me. So when I came out of that, I started to have that. Now, it's hard to have that constantly. It's impossible because you're in the experience. So I would try to practice that even 10 minutes a day of where I can see this and say, this is me. So this person yelling at me right now is me yelling at me. And it takes the sting away. It and then you start to realize, wait, maybe I am in the matrix. Maybe I am in the matrix. And if I'm in the matrix, then that means I'm the one who is writing the page the day before I read it.
I love that. Yeah.
Creating the story the day before I read the story. And when I read the story, I experience the story. So I am the writer of my story. I'm just a day ahead and I don't know it. But every now and then I get these little voices of the next day, of the actual writing of the story. And I get those little hints of what's coming. And then suddenly they show up because I got the hint that it's coming. So
So,
I
yeah.
tapped into the person or the thing or the being or whatever that's writing the story before I live it the next day. And
Mhm.
for me, that was a great trick. So what I started to do, I started to ask it, okay,
Mhm.
show me something. And, I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza guy. I've been to 14 of his workshops. I've met some of the most amazing people there. I have seen, honestly, some of the most mind-bending and just unbelievable things happen. I've seen people that couldn't walk. I've watched people that couldn't hear. I watched people that couldn't see.
Mhm.
And in those workshops, they would elevate so much because of the energy in the room. And then when they would go back home, they would go back into their old environment, into their own habit.
Mhm.
And suddenly all that was gone. So they would
Right.
come to this workshop, they would become their future self, this new person. And then when they would go back to their house, to their environment, they would become the person that left there. And then I would watch them struggle because they got a taste. And now I don't know what to do. Do what I have to
Mhm.
go to another workshop? That's why I went to 14, because I had an
Right.
experience in the first one that I was like, I don't know what just happened, but I need to do that again. And
Mhm.
I need to do it again and again and again. And that elevated emotion, that elevated energy, that elevated frequency is so transformative. It breaks the barrier between you and what you're separated from, because you suddenly become non-separate and
Mm.
everything is you. Everything is you. So it's just a matter of going down this path, which is hard for people. We call it, the awakening and, whatever people want to call it these days. It's just remembering who you are, stepping into the power that you won. And
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Dr. Joe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Joe
Great.
Dispenza for anyone interesting.
Yep. Yep.
I agree. I think, stepping into who you are, remembering, that's the thing, because it really feels like, and this is to something you said earlier. It's like, where it comes from is within you, it's when you get out of your mind, and you let your heart, it sounds funny because as soon as you go to this territory, it's so easy to be like, oh, okay. But
Well,
like,
you know what you do? It's easier to talk about it this way now because Aaron Rodgers said it,
oh, absolutely. That was
right?
such a good interview. Oh my God.
It was so fantastic. And when
Yeah.
I saw that, now, okay, so let me ask you, because as soon as this is what my wife Em and I were talking about it. So who was watching the interview? You are.
Right.
So that's in you. You are seeing the interview the way you need to see it to make it okay. Keep coming, because there's this universal intelligence that you are, again, that is saying keep coming, keep coming. And then you're like, but wait a minute, I don't know, is this really real? Is it really true? Yeah, Aubrey Marcus.
Mm. Yeah.
And when you start to realize that when you talk to that voice talks back, and it'll
Mhm. Oh,
show you
loud. Very loud sometimes.
loudly, yes,
Very loud.
very loudly. So, of course, here is this, Pro Bowl quarterback, maybe one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time,
Mhm.
next to Brady, and just such a great guy. But he plays one of the most manly sports there are, and he's having this
Yeah.
conversation with Aubrey Marcus about opening your heart, and you just need to get into your heart, get out of your head into your heart. And that's what I say all the time. Get out of your
Mhm.
head, get into your heart, because the
Yep.
thinking brain it's reactionary. You got to
Yep.
get in your heart to that's where the feelings are.
Mhm.
And it's scary. It's scary for
It can
guys,
hurt.
especially. It's scary for women too, because
Mhm.
they're afraid to step into the power that they are. And they're powerful.
Mhm.
We're all incredibly powerful. And that can be daunting sometimes because, and listen, I'll tell you what happened. I was flying back, I think it was from a workshop in Mexico. We were talking about Mexico, Gran
Right.
Vilas
Yeah.
Resort in Mexico, Cancun. And we were flying back, to Philly. We lived in Philly, and one of my best friends came to pick us up, and it was like 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night, and he picked me up in my truck. So when I got in my truck and we started driving, the whole time on the plane, I was watching this documentary about Ferrari and the drivers that drove for Ferrari. And in this documentary, I mean, guys were crashing everywhere and they were not living through them. They were burning.
Oh, wow.
They were just horrible crashes. But I was such in an elevated state because I just came back from this workshop. We start off driving down, 95. I'm talking Philly now. Starting to drive down 95, and it's dark. There's nobody on the road. This is a 4-lane highway. Nobody on the road, and except this car that is in front of me. And I'm watching the car, and I knew something was going to happen with this car. I knew it. And suddenly the car started to veer off, and there was an off ramp, and the divider that. Mm-hmm. It goes on the off ramp, and then there's a divider this guy, I'm like, hold on. And as soon as I said that, this dude hit the divider, flipped in the air. His axle flew over top of my truck, honest to God. And I watched the whole thing, and I knew everything to do. I swerved in the right way. I pulled over, and here's this guy's car upside down in the middle of a dark highway, and everybody is coming. Anybody that's coming down the road has got, about 3 seconds to react to this car. And I'll never forget that. It was like, oh my God, I got to really be careful what I pay attention to because this is happening so quick. I got to get in the state, but I got to put my attention on what I want. And not what I'm scared of.
Be so careful.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because fear is the ultimate illness. And it is. It's an illness. Mm-hmm. And
it really feels like that, It really does. When you tap into it, it feels like you're sick because it controls you so deeply. It's like a parasitic feeling, you want it so gone, but it just grabs you.
And it's an epidemic. Listen, that's the virus. Fear is our virus. Fear is the epidemic. But here's what we know. If laying in that bed was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I will tell you, anybody that I talk to, I tell you that from the heart, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because not at the time. Obviously, it sucked. It really did. It was really, really difficult. And now, even when I see anybody in a wheelchair, man, they're my heroes because man, the strength that it takes to go on day to day. And I have many of them. So they are, man, they're my heroes. But to go through that and to say that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me from what I learned from it and what now I know that I am, this epidemic of fear is only going to move us in the direction that we put ourselves in. So if you put yourself in total fear, you're going to lock yourself down. Yep. If you move and just say, you know what, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to die. Guess what? I'm going to die anyway. And as I say to everybody, listen, your candle's burning. Your candle's burning. I don't care if you're 22 or if you're 52 or if you're 82. Your candle is burning. So you got this one. This is the one that we know that we're a part of, this life. This is when you have to make a count. And that's when you have to press against fear. And like you said, there's a wall. It always comes. And that's when you know you're on the edge of your greatness. And that's the wall you need to press against. It is the scariest wall, but that's the one we need to press against. Because on the other side of that wall, which we think is concrete and it's 3 feet thick, it's not. It's a piece of paper. And you poke through it, and that's where everything is on the other side of that barrier, of that wall. So under it, over it, side to the side of it, that's where we need to get to. We need to get to that point, and that's when it can come. That's where it's been.
Exactly. It's just a hot piece of paper. It burns for about a split second. And then when it's over, it's like, it's like this free feeling,
Oh my God, so much. It's relief.
Oh, it absolutely is. You legitimately feel lighter the moment you cross through that. It's absolutely incredible. And real quick, I just want to thank Crypto Kindness. Thank you, brother. Appreciate the $10, man. I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation. I'm absolutely loving this. Yeah. And real quick, I know we've only got about 10 minutes left before we got to head out.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about, you made a comment on Facebook that one of those, something like crypto or cryptocurrency is the new spirituality. And I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, I think I asked the question: is crypto the new spirituality? So, being in this space and being a coach in this space and working with all different types of people, the hardest part for me has always been when somebody doesn't have the money to go to a workshop, either one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's or an Abraham Hicks or one of ours, my wife and I. In fact, we just did a workshop and in Cape Coral, and a week later it's gone.
Oh.
But the hardest part is the financial part for people, and I see people suffering, man. Like, really, they have just turned their back on finance, because if you have money, then you're not spiritual,
Mhm.
because money is the root of all evil. And they carry this thought, they carry this mindset. So why they have that, it tortures them, because they never have enough to do anything. They're
Mhm.
powerless. So they have no power whatsoever, when I know that they are extremely powerful. So that's really always the hardest conversation for me, is when somebody really, really needs this work
Mhm.
and they have that barrier. So I asked that question because I knew a couple of people. The answer I was going to get is like, yeah, there's no way, because money is the root of all evil, because money is control. It is banks. It
Mhm.
is our politicians. It is our governments that control it, and they're evil. So money has to be evil.
Mhm.
So I started to think about crypto, and, even setting up like a nonprofit with hex stakes,
Oh,
because
wow. That's awesome.
yeah, because like one thing that I know is I have done with our courses that we do, we have I have we would give scholarships. And this one person, anytime we did it, if they didn't have skin in the game, they really kind of fell off, and they didn't have they didn't achieve any result, because they didn't have any skin in the game.
Mhm.
So I know, if you pay a lot of money for a tool, you're going to use the tool. You're going to
Mhm.
learn to use it, because I got a lot
Absolutely
invested
you
in it,
are.
right?
Yep.
But if you don't have any money invested in it, it's easier to be the victim. It just is.
Mhm.
So then I thought, well, what if we could lock this money up, and if somebody sponsored someone to do a course, and we have a lot of them that
Mhm.
would want to do it. And what if we could do that, and we could take some money and we could put it in a stake, and at the end of the stake, whether, let's say, it's a year, then they would get the money from that stake. If they didn't, it would go back to the sponsor
Mhm.
of the stake. So either way, you're a winner, because you're helping somebody. And we know with crypto,
Right.
listen, it's made a lot of people a lot of money. Um, you know, People are really lucky in money. People are really lucky in love. People are really lucky with athletics, whatever. And there, it's just incredible to be able to give back to people that can't. They have trouble with that. So when I was thinking about that, I thought, see, you can't do that in the typical financial institution and direction. You really
Mhm.
can't do that, because there's no win for both of you. But in this case, it could really work. So it really started to get me to think, watching you guys stream, and I don't pay you to stream.
Mhm.
Crypto kindness. I watched him. I mean, I watch him. Coffee. I watch everybody. K for
Mhm.
K. All the guys.
Mhm.
And I sit in the background and I watch, and they're benefiting by giving me information. Well, I'm benefiting from giving the information that I give.
Mhm.
So if we look at it in that way, and not in the way of money is the root of all evil, then we really can change and bring money into what it actually is. It's just energy. Money
Mhm.
is just energy,
Mhm.
right? Love is just energy. Happiness is just energy. It's all just energy.
Mhm.
So that's why I kind of it is like for me helping you, then I'm helping myself. So that's kind of why I say it kind of is the new spirituality. And we talk about the terms of your future self and delayed gratification and all the things. And it is the language that I talk to my spiritual people. This is the language that we talk. And it was, again, when I started to see and meet the Hex community, I started to realize this is the spiritual community. We're all united. This is what we wanted to do. This is what we've been doing for the last 3 years, bringing people together in the spiritual way. Well, now I have something that helps them. I can say, hey, listen, but do your research. It's not financial advice, but get informed, because by coming together, and now we have a peer-to-peer, you and me can easily transact. Doesn't matter if you're in Canada, doesn't matter if you're in England, doesn't matter if you're in Mexico. I can easily transact with you. And I do it all the time now with Hex, and it's fantastic. People pay for our courses with Hex. So that's why I believe. And I think it's only the beginning of where we're going to go. It's going to be a wild ride. It really is going to be a wild ride.
I agree. It's going to be a very wild ride. And it gives us, crypto has the goal, at least in my mind, when you're really using crypto for what it's meant for, like your self-sovereignty, and spirituality is like self-sovereignty at its deepest core over yourself, over your life, over your experience, And so I think what you said is exactly the way I would describe it. I think I couldn't agree more. And I am very excited to see just where things go with crypto over the next. We got so much going on in the world right now, but crypto is kind of like it's like the hidden dagger. It's in the background, with everything going on in society, with governing things, with like World Economic Forum, with everything in the background. Cryptocurrency is looming, and cryptocurrency is the most dangerous. I think at least one of the most dangerous aspects that could potentially disturb a movement that would come our way.
Well, I think probably the best way to look at it is it's freedom. It's freedom for ourselves. And as you said, it is self-sovereignty. It is self-sovereignty. And there's a lot of power behind it, because one of the greatest analogies I have ever heard is, would you rather be an elephant or an ant? Because the ants have all the power, because there's billions of them. There's only 10 elephants, but there's billions of ants all around them, and the ants can easily take them down, So we are the ants, and we can be the decider here. And, again, and we've talked about this, you and I, the thing that we all have to understand first and foremost is we are all on the same damn team. We're all on the crypto team. Listen, I don't care if you have friends that do, or they're not your friends anymore that are in SHIB, or, a Bitcoin maxi, or somebody who's in Ethereum. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because we all love football. We all have our team that we root for. Right. But we all love the game. And this is the game of crypto. And we all know what this is going to do. And if we could stop our little pecking and stop our little fighting and just agree that we are on the greatest game right now, we can make the difference. And it's not just for you. It's not just for me. It's for all of us to actually have our own self-sovereignty, our own self-freedom. So
I absolutely love that. Scott, where can people find you so that they can get in contact with you if they want to contact you for anything that you do?
Facebook is a big one for me. Scott Sunderland on Facebook, Messenger. I'm on The Mind Coach. I'm on Twitter. My YouTube channel, I'll start putting that on Twitter. The Mind Coach on YouTube, and Freedom Project 222.com there too. So
amazing. And also,
I'm starting to update a lot of stuff now too.
That's awesome. And also you have a book that we've been referring to for the stream, which is obviously Finding Ugly, which, guys, in the description, if you'd like to go purchase the book and read it yourself,
perfect. Yeah.
It is in the description there. Go ahead and get it. It's $14.99 Canadian, which I think is like maybe like 11 or 10 bucks US.
It's pretty cheap. Yeah.
So it's super affordable, and it's an awesome read. It really is.
And I promise you, it is. It really is. It's a really good book. Honestly, I wrote it. So I have, I had 50 union carpenters work for me, and I wrote it so they could read it. You know what I mean? Because I know any long book they're not going to read, but I wanted them to be able to read one and not be able to put it down. So that was kind of the thing with that. But yeah, you can get that on Amazon, Finding Ugly. And yeah, I'm
Amazing.
around. I'm watching all of you. I am watching every single one of you. I don't care. You're streaming about hacks. I'm watching you. It's awesome. It is.
Yeah. And man, this has been so great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we could come on stream and talk about this, share your experience and your lessons and everything that you've been, working with or working towards with people. I mean, I think it's such a great message. I'm so glad we got to be able to do this together on stream for people.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Amazing, man. Well,
so happy.
Before we go, guys, I did say in the beginning of the stream that I was going to tell you guys about the biggest giveaway that I've ever done. And so here it is. So if you guys know about the PulseX giveaway that I've had on the channel, which is for 1 million PulseX, that's still going on. That's going to happen when we hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, which is going to happen pretty soon here. But we're going to take it up a notch, and not just one or two. We're going to take it up as high as I can possibly go at the moment here. And so what I'm going to be doing, and I don't have the logistics out yet, but since I've gotten into crypto, I have placed $60,000 into cryptocurrency. I'm going to be giving away my entire portfolio to someone that does the contest in whatever it's going to be. So again, I've placed $60,000 into crypto. I'm giving it away.
Wow.
You can anyone that's in this room right now or in this chat room can actually win that with the contest. I don't know exactly how it's going to be yet. There'll be an announcement soon, but I have a number of different cryptos I've sacrificed for PulseX. Someone's going to be giving that. So I wanted to just set that out there. Expect that video soon in the next handful of days, and get excited and get ready, guys. I want to change someone's life here with this. So that's all I had for the giveaway. Be on the lookout. I can't wait for it to start. Thank you guys all for being here. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like it. Share this stream out. Share this clip if you even want to. Share the whole thing. Clip the whole thing apart.
Wow.
Whatever you guys want to do. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for being here. And Scott, thank you again, man. It's been absolutely awesome.
You got it, brother. Anytime, man. And that's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome.
Appreciate that, man. Well, guys, take it easy. Have a great rest of your weekend. And we will talk to you very soon in the next one. Peace.